This is big news, and I got this news story breaking from Robert Malone on his Substack. I'm sharing with you a video from Tulsi Gabbard, who is literally stepping down for personal reasons as Director of National Intelligence in the United States, and she has blown it up on the last day. Now, uh, I haven't gotten my head around all the documents that she has released, so I'm going to go through them in due course. But what this indicates is something that a lot of people suspected, including myself. I'll explain why. And my question is, what does this mean? So now we have to get through the ideology because so many people have had their minds set that this was natural evolution. Don't worry about it, just conspiracy theories. This is way worse. And I think that we still have huge questions to try and answer. Let me play for you exactly what she said on the last day to make this point. Let's listen to her talking about it. I will jump in intermittently.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic.
I pause here just a moment. So she said something there that is important because she said unintentional lab leak. And what they are indicating here is that they were working on these viruses. It was funded by the US. This is probably why they didn't want this information to come out. But what's not clear is, was this deliberate or was it accidental? Her response there suggests that she thinks that it was accidental, but let's hear some more.
Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives.
Pausing here again, it's important to note that I think it was in 2014 that they had a moratorium on doing gain of function research. And gain of function research has a place in the sense that if you anticipate that there is going to be a change in a virus or even a bacteria, and you're trying to anticipate what is going to happen next, if you are able to test it in the lab, that allows you to preempt what is going to happen. But the reason that there's a moratorium is because it's dangerous. Because if you do it and then for whatever reason something goes wrong, you can end up creating more harm than good. Let's continue.
Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also...
I pause it here again. This is an important point. Very early on, a lot of people were saying that a virus getting a natural evolution out of nowhere made no sense. But we were then told with great confidence by a team of scientists supported by Dr. Fauci that lab leak was unlikely and actually a conspiracy. Now, this is very important because what then happened is that anyone who questioned the origin became labeled as a conspiracy theorist. They were literally shutting down people's accounts for even suggesting it because the science said there was only natural origin. That was the most likely thing. And what she's highlighting here is that that was staged, that was not real. And so this made the scientific and medical community shift their attention, because the truth is, if you knew it was a lab leak, if you knew it was gain of function, it should have made us take this virus far more seriously. But I'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's listen to some more.
Received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins. Once again, revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth. Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume three key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to big pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr.
I'll pause it here again. Now, I cannot for the life of me understand how people who are serious don't recognize a conflict of interest when you talk about lab origins, because we knew that there was clear benefit to some aspects of industry. And truthfully, if I was speaking to anybody in the pharmaceutical industry, I would frankly say the whole industry deserves to be punished, because I know that the industry knew that this was not likely to be natural origin, and they chose to stay silent on it. And in that respect, they picked a side, and so therefore they should be labeled as everyone else. One of the big issues that came out subsequently that still has not been addressed is that if it is not gain of function, if it was lab origin, we know a company that benefited from the pandemic coincidentally had a patent in the virus. What are the reparations for that? Nobody will want to touch it, but it is a very, very important question. Let's continue to listen to what she had to say.
Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available. Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations.
I'm pausing here now because I think it's important to give credit where credit is due, in the sense that after that cover up, which almost worked perfectly, in the sense that the people who spoke about lab leaks needed to be silenced, and they were removed from social media. People were afraid to talk about it. I remember my anxiety when I interviewed the professor who found the patent in the spike protein, or in the viral sequence. And he remained silent for almost 9 months. He was so anxious about his well-being if he was to publicize this. This is how scared people were about what they saw was potentially the truth. But one person in India, we don't know who he is. I'm trying to remember what his name was. And this guy refused to let it go. And he continued to search through all the papers that were coming out of China. He had to translate them into a different language to read them. And he kept going until he found clear evidence, published evidence, that they were working on a coronavirus that was very similar to SARS-CoV-2. This is what brought it back to the forefront, and they could not deny it at that time. Whoever that guy is needs to be given the credit for helping this kind of research and intelligence to be done. Let's continue to listen to Tulsi Gabbard.
He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts, while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID.
I'm pausing here again. It's important to put Fauci in context. You have to realize, for the medical community, one of our great textbooks that we studied from many years ago, he was integral in producing one of the chapters in that text. And so almost every doctor in Western medicine would have read that section of this book and considered him as very high in terms of promoting and improving the science. And so when these questions come up, it is very difficult for the medical community to acknowledge that one of their own would do something like this. It's very interesting when I reflect on what happened to Andrew Wakefield with regards to the MMR research and how he was treated because of falsifying information. Now, if you compare what happened to him with regards to that paper and what is happening here, there is no comparison. Yet in this situation, we are talking about millions dead, far more sick, and the problem not over yet. I'll come back to that shortly. Let's continue to listen.
Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks. For example, a contractor was terminated just days after coming forward to ODNI as a whistleblower. Another example, those who advocated for the lab leak hypothesis or expressed dissenting views were reminded by their managers that leadership would determine which analysts would be promoted and which would not. The message was clear: go along or be punished. Senior leaders also sought to undermine whistleblowers by removing anonymity, which is required in the whistleblower process, as they made their complaints, and also insisting that their managers or attorneys be present during ODNI meetings where these whistleblowers were coming forward.
I'm just going to pause this again here and just reflect on something. At the moment, it seems that all the blame is being placed at the feet of Fauci, in that he did this, he funded it, he suppressed and hid it, and then he silenced people who criticized it. There's no doubt that that is the truth. However, this cannot be one man. And this is now where we have to be very careful. In the same way that I said during the early phase of the pandemic, I truthfully stopped taking the WHO seriously when they didn't investigate the origins thoroughly. And similarly, what needs to be done here is beyond just targeting Anthony Fauci. You need to know who else was involved and what really was the intention. Was it just a money-making scheme to sell vaccines? Did it have a deeper purpose? We need to know. So there's still a lot more that has to be done, and the worst thing would be just to overlook it. Let's hear the last section of her statements.
with their testimony, obviously creating an atmosphere of intimidation. The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. Now, after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
Now, this is an important point, and I hadn't thought of this until she said it at the end. At the time, because Trump orchestrated Operation Warp Speed, which was to find a vaccine for this virus as quickly as possible, he then had to trust his leadership around him that things like hydroxychloroquine were clearly false, things like ivermectin were made up, and just anti-vaxxers were after it. And they had to zone in on getting a vaccine and a vaccine platform through as quickly as possible. Now, when we look back at this, if Trump knew that the virus had been manipulated, and when we say the virus, one of the main manipulations was with regards to the spike protein, the furin cleavage site, and other aspects of it that made it far more effective, being able to get into people and cause infection. One of the things that was done, and I said this at the time, and I keep on saying it, is that they used the most immunogenic and dangerous part of the virus that they are now acknowledging was synthesized and adjusted in the lab to train the immune system for the vast majority of the world. Now, if at this point the clinical and scientific community still doesn't recognize the seriousness of that, then truthfully, they are not fit for the purpose of trying to solve this problem. And this is where we are now. Too many people are ideologically locked into their beliefs and are unable to shift out of their thinking to be able to try and help us to move forward. We still have a circulating virus that is delivering a lab synthesized spike protein and causing illness all across the world. Just reflect on this. So, all those people who keep thinking this is over, the pandemic is over, you have no idea what in the world was created. You don't know what its purpose was for. You don't know what skill sets it has. So when I tell you that from 2021, researchers like Carla Brogna was finding that this virus had the capability to infect bacteria. I mean, that is mind-blowingly strange, which could explain many of the pathologies that we're seeing in the intestine. There are so many things that need to be addressed that have not been addressed because everybody has been going along with this narrative and too few have been asking hard questions. What I'm doing now is I am making sure that we don't get caught up in trying to crucify Anthony Fauci and miss the reality that the poison is still circulating and we need to figure out how to neutralize it. That is the challenge. If we don't figure this out, and I am telling you, I am observing the trajectory of illness. I no longer just accept simply that the trajectory of illness is in my head. I went through the hospital episode Statistics, 186 million, and I am searching for any kind of discrepancy to understand what is happening to the population health. That's the kind of work that we need going forward. We definitely don't need ideological narrative people. We need people who are willing to ask the hard questions, look for the answers, and try and find solutions. This is where we are at the moment. It is very upsetting, actually, to reflect on it. I have been saying this for years, and the reality coming forth is not actually nice to say, I told you so. It has just reinforced how much time has been lost, how many people have been harmed, and how many people are still going to try and pretend this is a non-issue. Do not let them get away with it. Play this video to everybody you know. Don't give them a chance. They need to be responsible for the fact that we need to find solutions. Have a great evening, everyone. Good news, I'm speaking to Gert tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time. I will send out the links. Make sure you follow along. He, I'm sure, will have thoughts and ideas about what is happening for the future. Have a great evening.